Do you ever notice how some prospects just don't feel the need to buy right now? They just keep delaying, ghosting, and we're left wondering, so why do some deals close and others just completely vanish? It happens when we do what I called scattered discovery. And what do I mean by that? I mean things like asking shallow questions, pitching too soon, like as soon as we hear a problem we can solve, or also letting the prospect lead the call instead of us really guiding that conversation. That's why we end up wasting time with people who are never going to buy, or end up discounting like an embarrassing amount like I did earlier in my career, or we lose to competitors who ask better questions. I'm Kristen, and I went from teaching 7th graders to closing 7-figure deals. And now what I do is I help teach other tech account executives how to turn average performance into consistent wins with a very systematic, common sense sales approach. One of the biggest gaps that I see with kind of mid-level, mid-performance AEs is weak discovery. We don't understand what's at stake personally that's enough to make our buyers say yes. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact discovery framework that builds urgency and closes more enterprise deals that separate just top performers from merely average reps. And at the end, I'm going to share what I call my math method that makes price objections just kind of disappear. So let's get started. Here's the thing that most people get wrong or misunderstand about first calls. Some companies call them discovery calls. Some sellers think that the job in those calls is to pitch the offer. It is absolutely not. It is also not just to simply qualify the offer in a way that makes prospects feel like they're being interrogated. But we want to have a very specific and focused conversation. And the focus there is to diagnose whether this person agrees that they have a problem big enough to solve and whether they are prioritizing that problem right now. Whether the cost of doing nothing is higher than the cost of doing something. Whether the pain of same is less than the pain of change whenever they buy our product or service. If we can't answer those 3 questions by the end of the call, we haven't done discovery. We've just had a conversation. So here are 7 questions that I've collected over my 10 plus years of selling that are absolutely the antidote to scattered selling. Question 1. So this problem you're describing, it's probably been around for a while. Curious kind of what's causing it to be prioritized right now. This is the first question that we need to ask after they start explaining their problem, because here's what a lot of people miss. If somebody has been dealing with an issue for 6 months or a year and they've just now reached out now, something has changed. And it's not just businesses that do this. We as regular humans do it as well. For example, so a couple months ago, my husband had a tire that had a slow leak. And just for everyday run-of-the-mill driving, it was no big deal. But when we were planning a trip to go back home for a family reunion, which was going to require a 10-hour drive, that's a different story. We needed that car to be reliable and not come out to a flat tire on a road trip. Something changed. The problem had been there for several months, but it had just reached a point where it was a priority. So let's go back to our buyers. Maybe they got a new budget. Maybe they have a CXO who is putting pressure on them because it looks like they're behind on delivering a KPI. Regardless of what it was, we need to understand what triggered the urgency. Because if there's no urgency, there is no sale. They'll just say, thanks for the information, let me think about it, and then just disappear. So when we ask that what changed question, here's the phrases that we want to listen for. This is a change in what we're listening for in a discovery call. Because if we're honest, most of us in a discovery call are listening for, where's a problem I can solve? When do I hear something that my product can do? And then I just get excited and sit and wait my turn to be able to talk about, we can solve that problem for you. We can patch your tire. Right? This is a different type of listening. We're listening for the reason for the urgency. So in real life, that sounds like things like, hey, we just lost a major client. My boss told me to fix this by Q3. I just got promoted and I need to hit my 30, 60, 90-day targets, right? Those things. We're listening for the reason for the urgency because these are buying signals. Now, here's a key. Notice the tone when we ask this. We are not interrogating them, right? It's not like, well, what's causing this to be a problem right now? Okay, so it sounds like y'all have been dealing with this for a while. It sounds like it's been a problem, right? It's been a pain, but now it's kind of moved up to the level of priority. And I'm curious kind of what elevated it to the level of priority recently. And the reason I'm asking is if I understand what's causing it to be prioritized, I can make sure to speak to that first in the conversation. People's compliance and openness when answering questions changes immensely whenever we tell them why we are asking, right? And it's a question, and then we frame the answer or we frame the why in something that benefits them. We're asking why so that we can speak to what they're interested in first in the conversation. It helps them think, oh, this person is keen to not waste my time, versus thinking, oh, this is a salesperson just asking the questions they need so that they can pitch me on their thing. That's a very different motivation. And notice how in the first question we pause before now. Right? Like, so what's elevating this to be a priority, not just a problem? What's causing that right now? Okay, that's a verbal pause. The pause makes their brain focus on the word now. The pause gives them time to internalize the question, and that's when they can start to open up emotionally and tell us what's really going on. Question 2. So what's your opinion on why this problem is happening? This one is underrated. Everyone has an opinion. This is where you also may see kind of some company politics come out, because if sales views it as marketing's fault, or if finance views it as operations fault, that's where this is going to come out, because they're going to tell you how the other department screwed up, right? So this is underrated. Another reason this is important is because it tells you whether they understand the root cause of their problems or just the symptoms. Think about if you're in your car and it breaks down, you have to pull off to the side of the road. If the car won't start, it could be a number of things, right? It could be out of gas, it could need a new battery, or the engine could be overheating. And the solution to what's going to make the car go is completely different depending on the root cause. So if we're selling to the legal department and they say, hey, we as a legal department, we're spending too much time on contract review, right? It's too manual. And what that meant was all that spend on billable hours, what that meant was it was diverting funds that should have been placed elsewhere. So that budget was all of a sudden blown way out of projection, which rippled out to every department because everything had to shift around to accommodate that huge change in a budget. That's a much different problem than too much time spent on manual contract review. So when we are the ones that help uncover that and we can help guide them towards that real issue, when we do that, we are positioning ourselves as an expert who gets it, not just a vendor who's looking to sell them something. This also triggers what's called self-persuasion. When they tell us why the problem exists, they are convincing themselves, they're selling themselves. When we tell them why the problem exists, that's just all they hear is our opinion as a salesperson. Question 3. So if you had to stack rank this in your top 5 priorities slide for your company, where does it land in those top 5 priorities? This is a question for executives, right? This is the question for above the line buyers, so VP and above. Because if that problem is not in those top 3 priorities, they're not going to buy anything. I don't care how much pain there is. I don't care if they admit it's a problem. If it is priority 7, it doesn't make the slide. They're going to push it on to next quarter. So we ask this question early. And if they say, hey, you know what, honestly, it's probably priority number 5 or 6, we need to do one of a couple of things. We need to either help them reprioritize it by showing them the ripple effects of that problem and uncovering the true cost of inaction, which we'll get to in a second, or we just need to put them in a nurture sequence and move on. The bottom line is we don't want to spend a lot of time on people who are not ready to solve the problem right now. Question 4. What else have you tried to solve this problem? And how did that go? This is where we have the possibility to really eliminate competition and uncover the need and priority level. Here's why. If they've tried 3 other solutions and none of them worked, this is where ears should perk up, because now you know that they are incredibly focused on figuring out this problem and getting to the bottom of it. They've already spent time and money on 3 other things, right? Notice whenever we ask what didn't work, now we know how to speak to the specific pieces of our solution that fill those gaps. I also like to ask, what did you like about those things? Because we don't want to assume that just because something that they tried didn't work, that they didn't like anything about it. And when they tell us what they liked, we want to be sure that we can cover off on those things by letting them know whether our product does those things, whether they get to keep the functionality that they were missing to really have the solution to the problem. Question 5. Hey, could you walk me through the ripple effects that this is having across the business? This question helps uncover urgency better than almost anything else, because many times we are naturally self-centered, right? We are thinking about us all the time. When a call with us and this particular question can help them kind of pick their head up and look around and realize how much impact this is having across a company, that's where they can start to realize, oh, this is a problem for 3 other teams, which means there are 3 other departments potentially that could contribute to budget for this, right? That's when the wheels can really start turning. They may not have thought of that at all. Okay, let me give you an example here. When I sold analytics, I had a client who worked on dashboards for a CFO. Whenever they talked to me, they were currently using our competitor to create those dashboards, sending information and data from Excel to Power BI. And the reason that there was urgency was that the week before had been one data error entry in Excel that caused revenue forecasts to be inaccurate, because this error messed up their revenue forecast. It put their revenue forecast much higher than it should have been. They're a public company. This can lead to a lower stock price, angry investors, unflattering comments from analysts. So now the cost of doing nothing is not just that they're not hitting revenue targets, which is bad enough. It's that they might have to lay people off in the very near future. That's urgency. That's a C-level priority. Also, understand what we just heard. The one problem, the data entry problem, that one problem is creating 5 other problems. It's a cascade. That's the power of asking this ripple effects question. Question 6. So before we go too much farther, I just want to validate that we are solving the right problem. What we've been talking about up to now, is this the challenge that you care the most about? Or are we barking up the wrong tree here? This is an alignment check. And this is a super important question to ask, because sometimes in these early calls, we can get off on a tangent and the prospect end up talking about something for 20 minutes. So we assume, oh gosh, this is a big problem. When we ask this question, sometimes we uncover, actually, this is really an edge case, but it just happened recently. And so it was top of mind, and it's irritating, but it's not the most important thing. So that's why we really want to make sure that we're solving the right problem before we start to talk about how we can help. But sometimes they will pause and say, well, actually, the bigger issue is XYZ, and they reveal the pain. That's whenever we get much closer to a sale, because we are talking about now the pain that has urgency behind. Question 7 is the math framework. And this is the most important framework in this entire video. So MATH is an acronym, and it stands for metric, actual, target, holding you back. So whenever they talk about a problem that they're having, that's where we start with metric. Okay, sounds like this is a problem. What metric are you currently using to measure this? Is it revenue? Is it churn? Is it margin? Is it headcount? Whatever the metrics are typically for your industry, you want to give them some options there. So we want to ask them, hey, what metric are you using? A is actual. We want to ask them, okay, you told us the metric. What is your actual performance? Where are you right now? Are you at 3 million in revenue, 19% margin, 8% churn? What does this metric actually look like for you right now? Makes total logical sense that the next question is target, right? That's the T. We've asked about the metric. We've asked about what they're actually hitting. Now we're asking what their target is. Where do they want to be? Do they want to be at 26 million? Do they want to be at 28% margin? Do they want to be at 6% churn, right? Is it millions or tens of millions? If they say a lot, what does a lot mean? Does a lot mean millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars? When they say we want to get better, do they want to improve by 6% or 26%? We need to really nail down What is their target? What are they looking to get to? And then H is simply holding you back. So what's holding them back? What's stopping them from hitting that target today? But when we ask this sequence, that is where we create a quantifiable gap. It's not just squishy numbers. It's not just squishy concepts. It's not just get more efficient, reduce manual processes. Math helps us quantify that. If they're at 6 million and they want to be at 26 million, we can see it's a $20 million gap. That's so much better than we just need more revenue. This question is a superpower because it's valuable in two ways. Number one is it helps them really think through what it is they actually want. And they may have never thought about it at that crystal clear of a level. Number two is when they quantify how big the problem is, now our price isn't expensive. It's a fraction of the value that we are unlocking. If they have a $20 million gap in what their actual is versus what their target is, and our product can get them to that, and it costs $200,000 to close a $20 million gap, that's math that maths. That works out. Bottom line is, if we're in sales and we are not asking these questions, we are leaving money on the table. We end up letting buyers who aren't ready yet waste our time, and we end up losing deals to people who are better at diagnosing problems than we are. That is a very expensive problem for us to have. The difference between scattered selling and disciplined selling is structure, is asking the right questions for the right reasons in the right order. When we do that well, pricing objections become greatly diminished. They become a minor factor. This is where ghosting is not an issue. People start saying yes. People start lining up to say yes. Hey, do me a small favor. If you found this valuable, please make sure to like and subscribe, and drop a comment below if you have questions about these discovery questions, what they could sound like in your situation. I definitely read all those comments, and I'll see you in the next one.